outside its borders in direct violation of the United Nations. Watch.
It's hard to find a conflict or a terrorist group in the Middle East that does not have Iran's fingerprints all over it. These are the recovered pieces of a missile fired by Houthi militants from Yemen into Saudi Arabia. The missile's intended target was the civilian airport in Riyadh, through which tens of thousands of passengers travel each day.
So what happens now? General Jack Keane, retired four-star general, former Army Vice Chief of Staff, and Fox News senior strategic analyst, joins us tonight. Good evening, General. Good to see you.
Good to be here, Martha.
So this is evidence that they have violated the UN resolutions under which this Iran deal exists, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the tragedy of this, and you mentioned it in the introduction, is we wanted to put this on the table initially as part of the condition for having a nuclear deal with the Iranians. But the Iranians said, no, we're not going to discuss any of this malign behavior, any of this kind of aggression. It's not related to nuclear. So here we have Iran being totally exposed for providing short-range ballistic missiles, anti-tank weapons, patrol boats rigged for detonation, and also UAVs to the Houthis, all being used against Saudi Arabia, who's an ally of the United States, after they've toppled the friendly government in Yemen.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously puts us in a pretty tough position. So what do we do?
Well, first of all, one of our problems we have is exposing it the way we're doing it is good, because I think it brings our allies closer to us in pushing back on Iran's malign behavior. As a matter of policy, the president has said he wants to push back on Iran. But we don't have a strategy with specifics to do that. As an example, Iran is trampling all over Syria. They about own the country. The Institute for the Study of War has declared that Iran has established a land bridge now from Iran through Iraq, through Syria to Lebanon. That is something that we should never have permitted to happen. Iran is trampling over our political interests in Iraq. They've got 150,000 Shia militia, Martha, some of whom are on the border with Syria and Iraq, but who have undue influence in Iraq. We should be pushing back on that. And we should also be taking a stand to help Saudi Arabia with the problem they have in Yemen. But we don't have any of those specifics.
Well, I mean, you have long mapped and tracked the expansion of Iranian power throughout the Middle East, and it's clear that their goal is to take over and dominate the entire Middle East. And unless somebody pushes back on that, that's pretty much the road that they're on. So in order to do that down the road, we may need a stronger defensive position. And I know you're very concerned about the budget issue that would be essential to President Trump's desire to increase our defenses.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, good news this week. The president signed into law the FY18 National Defense Authorization Act, which brings us close to a $700 billion budget, approximately a $100 billion plus-up over Obama's budgets, which is a huge down payment in rebuilding the military. Problem is that the budget caps are still there, and the appropriators have to pass legislation, and they have to remove those budget caps, or we don't fund $700 billion, we fund $549, and that means no, I say no, military plus-up. That's got to be done in the next couple of weeks, and they need Democratic support to do it. I think they'll likely get it, Martha, because they'll probably work some deal with the Democrats to give them some increase in spending as well.
Important to watch. General Jack Keane, always good to see you, sir. Thank you very much.
Good talking to you, Martha.
You too. So no Christmas in Jerusalem this year? The Grinch seems to have surfaced in a very real way in the place where the answer to this. Hi, Trace.
Hey, Martha, as many have pointed out, this isn't the first movie hero to sexually harass the heroine. For example, Dustin Hoffman's character of Benjamin Braddock in The Graduate was clearly inappropriate with Catherine Ross's character, as was Sylvester Stallone's Rocky Balboa toward Talia Shire's Adrian, and it's hard to argue that Tom Hanks' character in You've Got Mail didn't cross the line with Meg Ryan's Kathleen Kelly. But now writer Hayden Fry has penned an opinion piece in USA Today detailing why Anakin Skywalker should have been removed removed from the Jedi Order for sexually harassing Padme Amidala in Star Wars Episode 2. Or as Fry says, quote, while this may have happened a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it deserves to be called out now. Fry then goes on to list his reasons, including that Skywalker was assigned to protect her, but aggressively pursued her. And because her life is in danger, Amidala has no way to flee her predator. It's clear Hayden Fry is writing satire. Or is it? Because the subject matter has been front and center for months, and because the Me Too movement has proven to be so powerful, many readers took Fry's piece as is. One Twitter post read, quoting, "Is this satire? Please say this is satire," to which Hayden Fry responded, "It's supposed to be funny." But many didn't think it was funny. Quote, "The worst excuse of satire I have ever read in life, and usually I'm pretty good on picking this up." Or this, quote, "I cannot tell parody from seriousness anymore." And this tweet kind of sums up the conundrum. Quoting again, "The satire illuminates how the current moment affects 2018 romance. Stalkers are creepy. Noah from The Notebook is adorable and noteworthy for his dogged pursuit of love." Although nobody appears to be arguing that Harvey Weinstein and others simply had their noble intentions misunderstood, and the moral of Hayden Fry's satirical op-ed might have a serious takeaway when he notes the Jedi Council's inability to remove a toxic, misogynistic predator from its ranks ultimately brings about its downfall. Martha.
Trace Gallagher, awesome setup there. Thank you very much. Charlie Hurt, Washington Times columnist, and Richard Fowler, nationally syndicated radio host. Both are Fox News contributors, gentlemen. So I have a little test for you. Let's play the Gone with the Wind video.
You turned me out while you chased Ashley Wilkes, while you dreamed of Ashley Wilkes. This is one night you're not turning me out.
Oh, Rhett Butler, harasser or not? Charlie.
Come on, you can't do this to me. I would say no. I have to say no just out of a solidarity with my people.
Okay. Richard, harasser or no?
I have to agree with Charlie on this one. It's fiction, and they think about the time and place and the era that it happened in, right?
Well,
and I think that paints everything.
And that raises a lot of questions. And you know, I just want to show you one more clip. This is Moonstruck.
I'm in love with you.
Snap out of it. Cher's character, whose name I can't remember. Harasser, Charlie.
That's violence. That's
pretty rough.
That's unacceptable even in my household.
Richard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is definitely violence. That's a little rough. That's rough and tumble there.
I know, you know, but so, I mean, all of this is not at all to minimize the real situations, absolutely, as Trace just pointed out with the Harvey Weinstein point that he made so perfectly at the end of that piece. But I do think that what this writer is doing in this satire is saying, you know, we do have to figure out where the lines are drawn, you know, and are we going to get to a point where movies become triggers because we expect everyone to behave perfectly, even in a movie, and that romance doesn't ever you know, have elements to it that may be something that some people may find questionable. I mean, we may find ourselves in a very sort of sterilized situation when we go to the movies, when we talk, when we interact with each other, Charlie.
I think you're absolutely right about it. Although I'm fully in favor of the idea that Hollywood might begin policing itself a little bit, because they lecture us about whether it's the treatment of women, or they lecture us about violence, or they lecture us about guns, and then they produce all of these filthy movies that come out, and there are obviously some great movies in there, but they also produce a lot of filthy movies that promote all of this stuff, and I think it's kind of strange. But the thing that I find really appalling right now is that in the midst of all of this, we have that movie that is out that clearly celebrates an older man being as a predator of a young underage teen boy, and already this movie is being talked about for Oscar nominations and other awards.
Is this Call Me By Your Name?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it.
I haven't either, and I would never go see it. But I find it kind of astonishing that in this environment that they would produce a movie like that.
Richard, what do you think about all that?
Well, I think Charlie brings up a good point, and I think it speaks to a point that I've said all along, and I think it's really important now more than ever that the next level or the next step for this Me Too campaign has to be about education. How do we educate both older men, but also younger men and boys about how to treat
and
women?
women. Cher was pretty rough there.
And women. And women at that rate. That's a good point, Martha, on how we operate as a society, because now you can't mimic the movies, because mimicking the movies would get you fired or will get you in trouble or will get you possibly in court. So we've got to have an education component here, or we could be creating a society where people mimic what they see on television or what they see in movies, and they get themselves in really big trouble.
Yeah. Well, the lines are going to be something that we're going to have to work on for some time, because you don't really want to live in a society where some of this is considered triggers and horrible behavior, and that we have to eliminate it from movie. I worry about that slippery slope.
It all does come down to basic human decency and treating people with respect.
Thank you,
But
Charlie.
you got to educate them on that.
But we just saw you on the other monitor on Dobbs, Charlie. So we're trying to figure out how you do that. You're zealot. You're everywhere.
It's amazing.
Thanks, you guys. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
So Jesus' hometown is saying bah humbug. They canceled Christmas, and they're blaming President Trump. We're going to tell you what that's all about when Pastor Robert Jeffress, snow-covered trees decked in bright gold lights. Remember, it was one of candidate Trump's key campaign promises that we're all going to say Merry Christmas again. But one place where they will not be saying Merry Christmas this year is Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. Local leaders are canceling a number of the Christmas festivities. They blame President Trump for his decision to declare that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. They say that has taken the joy out of all of their celebrations, and it has annoyed the Palestinians. So joining us now, Pastor Robert Jeffress has met with the president a couple of times this week, spent a fair amount of time with he and the First Lady, and he's a Fox News contributor. Pastor, good to have you with us tonight.
Thanks.
First of all, explain to us the irritation about the decision, which is, obviously on the face of it, but this decision to remove the Christmas celebrations from Nazareth is quite striking, really, when you think about it.
Well, really, Martha, this is a pretty good year for the Palestinians to skip celebrating Christmas, because the historical account of the birth of Christ actually proves that the Palestinians are absolutely wrong and President Trump is absolutely right about Jerusalem. And here's why. In Luke's gospel, it notes that Jesus was a descendant of King David. We know from history that David's the one who named Jerusalem as Israel's capital in 1000 B.C. That's a full 1100 years before the term Palestinian was invented by the Roman Emperor Hadrian. And Tuesday night at the White House Christmas party, President Trump asked me to say a few words before I closed in prayer. And I thanked President Trump for having the guts to do what no other U.S. president has been willing to do. In recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, President Trump is not only on the right side of history, he's on the right side of God.
Well, obviously, there's some backlash in Nazareth, which I guess, as you say, is to be expected. They don't like the origin of the Christmas story and the Christmas tradition. So let me just take a look at a Pew poll that we also found interesting, and I think that people who believe that Christmas is a Christian holiday will find it a little bit disheartening. Those who believe it's a religious holiday, that has declined by 5%. Those who think it's a cultural holiday is now up to 33%. I guess, we have our own materialism to thank for that.
Well, I think so. And look, the tendency...
didn't. 2 months later, right. It was written based on honoring Clinton, and other people. This looks like a scam to me.
Well, the agreements to Sharon Mills and Heather Sanderson. And they basically the guy from certain email time proven potentially obstruction to then computers. Why is not an investigation that was serious uncovered?
So if don't live in Washington, why do the powerful get a? I did this. I Clinton.
The problem is seen most in the size, probably the most fierce government from San most is a political weapon. We this is of the FBI lose confidence in these institutions that should be. I have no
why the FBI doesn't clean, provide this information. What trying to cover?
How can you examine someone doing that investigation? They answer.
Other than hiding behind that's one nation.
So the FBI by voters. So question hangs in the here. What do you require the Constitution?
Of course, Constitution and do, and so subpoena. But again, we have power to enforce those in the executive branch. Reject problem demise.
So what do you do?
Public and hope pressure for come clear if you want the suspicions. Not only what happened under Clinton investigation, but currently was the Mueller investigation. Again, the cast of characters both.
Not as a part of American scare.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. State Department apparently deal with Clinton aid that files copies of those and claimed original. The public does not have federal correspondent detail.
Good to see you. These are explosive documents out today. Guess what? Certainly got a lot about people very deep inside the federal government, including to try to keep her of Trump. As you noted, this is the conservative watch. They found it allowed an entire Aberdeen go in and move electronic and copy records for a time in the state before she. The claim is that were quote personal materials. In fairness, some of those were deemed personal correspondence, but other records that moved or official sounding records, her visuals, log to over the phone, for was allowed to 5 boxes of physical materials at the State Department headquarters here in Washington. A set of engagement. Also interesting is that these records included what judicial is that the of the foundation received in the various world that obviously sheds not the gifts that were received, but potential of action department. The question that we don't know is whether or not there were copies by the department electronic and physical records, because even them out, there could be a record in the State Department.
Thank you for that. We're going to just told in just a guest from him about the conference a Harvard law professor and the joint. So which apparently for 2 views of figures, including Hillary Clinton. Would you exonerate someone for the?
Well, look at the picture. Does anybody want a judicial system where freedom ends, conduct grossly negligent, extremely careless? Those are the biggest possible. If you asked 100 potential jurors, what's worse, being negligent, extremely careless, probably split 50-50.
No, that's.
So these rules are absurd. Criminalized conduct, like that, endanger. Let's look at the other picture. Comey's decision to make the statement called extremely careless may very well have contributed to her being the Comey not a friend would proceed trying to get it back. And what I think happened is not anybody else. The decision on violence should not be prosecuted, and that's would change because if he was grossly negligent, God, that crime he had already made the fact nobody had been prosecuted who was in a position of authority like Hillary in any way. This and that's his statement. So I do think that the right decision. I think to change the language to support that decision. Now, should made.
Well, obviously, shouldn't exactly what happened. I mean, Congress has oversight oversight agency in the FBI, and they've asked us, these changes, we can't get an answer. Unconstitutional in the FBI.
They should a system of checks and balances. Congress subpoena to learn what the FBI has done of Congress. Part of the State Department to be sure we have power, but this permits Congress to check on executive. So transparency and Constitution require that the FBI disclose that important information.
Interesting. What do you deal with Hillary and Abbott? Allowed them to file of the bill to prevent us from being different. Anything have you?
I think routinely people who serve as secretary of the position are going to write books, and they routinely material home copies are maintained at the that copies, electronic copies exist of what removed. It's worth adding about. I wouldn't jump to conclusions. And again, I don't see criminalization become the resort. If we don't let somebody down, lock her up. We're seeing that.
I agree. I vehemently on that, and I don't think that everything you touched, but I think that one of the reasons everyone is so and feels is because this is opaque. This is hidden from lack of makes agitate. And so, on what would you hide public scale from public?
You never be able to do that. It was Louis Brandeis who said that China is the best. Our government should be disclosed. Every subject to disclosure, unless overwhelming national security reasons, keeping it entirely sealed. It should ever be publicly sealed. And transparency trumps private administration.
Is on the level. From Peter Strzok to Lisa Page to Andrew Weissman to Bruce Orr. A number of members of this investigative team appear to be partisan Democrats. Well, they are, because 9 out of 15 of the investigators we know about have given money to the Democrats, to the Clintons. By the way, no matter how partisan you are, have you ever given money to a candidate? Probably not. Only a tiny percentage of Americans do, and it suggests a real commitment to the cause. I have political views. I've never given $1 to a politician. So what does it mean that 9 out of 15 have given money to Democratic politicians? Al Mortura is a lobbyist. He served on Hillary Clinton's finance team in 2016. He joins us now. Al, you've been in Washington for a long time, and you kind of know how it works. You're a partisan Democrat. That's fine. Does it bother you at all that this investigation seems to have a lot of people close to the heart of it who are actively partisan? Doesn't that shake your faith a little bit in this investigation?
Not really. Look, Director Comey, who you talked about in the prior segment, he left. I think both the Democrats and the Republicans thought he should go.
Yeah.
And so if you have problems that need to be rooted out, one of the gentlemen you mentioned, Mr. Strzok, he's been reassigned. I think he works in HR now at the Department of Justice. So I have some faith that they're looking at these things and doing the right by them.
Well, Mueller did the right thing with Strzok. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But why hide? Because Strzok was at the very center of a lot of this stuff. He conducted the Mike Flynn interview, for example. He signed the original investigation order of the Russia-Trump collusion story.
Right.
But why would Mueller hide the fact that he had been demoted for months from Congress? And why won't the FBI answer a very simple question? Is he the one who revised Comey's speech about the Hillary Clinton investigation? Why not? What would be the point of not revealing that?
I mean, actually, I listened to your interview with Senator Johnson. I think all the facts should come out.
Yeah.
What's the problem with that? But I think Mueller runs a very tight ship. You haven't seen many leaks at all. And his view is, I don't know him, but his view is probably, I don't need to share information with these people right now, and I'm not going to.
With the so look, let's be totally honest here. At some point, Democrats are going to take control of a branch of government, because
I hope so.
It's cyclical. It'll happen. And the FBI is not mostly liberals, actually. The career people, probably mostly pretty conservative. You know, I would argue that. So if you're setting a precedent now that the FBI can kind of do whatever it wants, and if they don't like you, they can crush you, and if they do like you, they let you off, are you comfortable with that standard?
I'm not comfortable with what you just said being the standard. I don't think that's what's actually happening. I think the facts will take us where they take us. And Bob Mueller's a patriot. He's a decorated Marine veteran who received a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. He's a guy who served our country with distinction in Vietnam.
So if you serve your country in Vietnam, I mean, I think Judge Roy Moore served in Vietnam.
He did. I was going further, which is to say he's a staunch Republican. He was appointed by George W. Bush. He was confirmed in a bipartisan way.
I don't care about any of that. I only care about is his behavior and does it pass a simple fairness test, and I'm starting to wonder.
Look, again, the facts will take us where they take us. What Bob Mueller's trying to do is examine those facts and come to a conclusion. But nobody's going to be criminally prosecuted and proved guilty beyond a reasonable doubt because of bias. If those things actually happen with respect to individuals, either in this administration or some of these individuals who have pled, it's going to happen because the facts take us there.
Really? I used to believe that, and then I saw what happened to Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin, both of whom said, I believe to Peter Strzok in an FBI interview, that they were not aware of Hillary Clinton's private email server. And Cheryl Mills, I think, said she didn't know what an email server was. WikiLeaks released emails in which they discussed the private server. They lied. And they got off. They were not charged. Mike Flynn lied and was charged with a felony and pled to it. So there is selective prosecution, clearly. I mean, that's an example of it. Why wouldn't that make me nervous as an American?
But that happens all the time with prosecutors. I mean, they don't always chase everything down. They don't chase the jaywalker down all the time. I mean, so perhaps what you're saying is exactly right. I don't know all the facts, but that doesn't mean necessarily you shouldn't trust the institution. My concern with respect to that period of time is why did people like Rudy Giuliani and others seem to know that the FBI was about to come out with that second Comey letter? Were there leaks? Because Republicans like to talk about the leaks should be prosecuted.
I don't know.
They should be.
That's an entirely fair question. But you will concede that the FBI has, in a number of specific examples, acted out of political motive in investigations in the last couple of years. Democrats are saying nothing because it's achieving their ends. They're kind of happy with what's going on. It's hamstrung the administration completely. But when they take power at some point, how do you think they'll do against an FBI that has basically unlimited power and no oversight from Congress?
Again, I think that we have to focus on the facts.
Well, those are the facts.
You're suggesting that they're going to take facts, twist them, and enact an agenda that is partisan. I've not seen that. Again, Strzok removed, Comey fired. The current head of the FBI is President Trump's head of the FBI.
Yeah, he is.
The current deputy AG is President Trump's deputy AG, who just testified in Congress.
The president's in charge of the entire.
Who just testified that he believes that that Mueller is totally credible and doing a good job.
Well, I guess we'll see. So let me ask you one final question. So the genesis of all of this was the claim that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government in order to alter the outcome of the American presidential election. It's a big charge. We've seen no evidence that that's true. If at the end of this investigation you see, I don't know, Paul Manafort and General Flynn go down on perjury charges,
right? But
there's no evidence at all of collusion, would it have been worth it?
Well, we had a president impeached, unfortunately, for perjuring himself, allegedly. So, you know, let's not belittle that.
Well, I am belittling it and saying, and including in the case of Bill Clinton, who should not have been impeached for lying. I'm not defending lying. I'm saying you shut down the federal government. You basically undo the will of the voters in the last election in the service of nothing. I don't know how you could defend that.
That's certainly what I think the Trump supporters believe and are hoping is the case.
No, but do you think that's the case?
I don't know. We don't know yet. We're at the tip of the iceberg.
But why aren't Democrats saying demanding evidence of collusion? Isn't that the whole point?
If Michael Flynn pled to this small charge, as you said, when he faced tens of years of jail time for other charges, there's something going on there. If Papadopoulos, who you didn't mention, promised to be a cooperating witness for months, we don't know what that cooperation will yield. Flynn's promised to be a cooperating witness. We don't know what that will yield. I still think we're at the tip of the iceberg here.
Maybe. And by the way, if there's ever evidence that the Trump campaign or administration colluded with the Russian government to subvert democracy, I'll be the first to denounce them. But I haven't seen in over a year of talking about this every single night a single piece of evidence of that.
And that's
I'm starting to worry.
That's because Bob Mueller's developing a story.
No, it was even before then. We'll see. Al, thank you.
Good to be with you.
The panic over sexual harassment isn't just ending careers, it is now claiming lives. Up next, we'll ask Mark Stein whether it is time to take a break from all of this, take a breath, and figure out what the rules are going forward. We'll be right back.